Alrighty, I believe we are live finally. So this is the day I've been eagerly awaiting to finally get to. We're going to be discussing first book of Tawny Man, Fool's Errand here, and I'll give Ben just a second to introduce himself here before we get rolling on the Fool's Errand chat.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I'm Ben from Books with Benghis Kahn. If you try to search for my channel, you might have to like click on the thing that you actually search for and not Books with Genghis Khan, which they will automatically search for. So maybe not the smartest channel name ever, but I've been loving doing these Realm of the Elderlings buddy reads with Colin the last few months. This is our fourth one. I think all four have been winners for both of us. So yeah, this has been great. And hello to Derry over there in New Zealand. Sorry we did this at a really late time for you.
Yeah, ironically, it's not early for us, but it's one of the earlier live chat discussions. When Ben and I first started doing this, we were kind of trying to decide what days to do this. We don't want to be competing with people like Mike's book reviews when he's doing his lives, or Jimmy when he's doing chatting with nuts. And so Ben one day was just like, "You want to do Sunday morning?" And I was like, "Sure." So it's kind of just become the thing when we can find
Yeah,
a Sunday that works for us. It's our Sunday morning hangout.
totally.
Um, so I let's see what Derry said here. The whole booktube knows this is that's true. That's very true. Um, I just kind of figured we might go and briefly just give our spoiler free thoughts. I don't anticipate anybody joining this that hasn't already read, at least through live ships. So we will briefly just touch on some spoiler free thoughts, and then I'll make sure to maybe put a banner up or just make it pretty obvious when we're going to really dip into spoiler territories. But I don't imagine the spoiler free chat will last too long. But Ben, what were your overall thoughts upon closing the last page of this one?
Oh man, just spectacular book one. Just maybe one of the best book ones I can remember, and just an amazing continuation after a hefty time skip. It was 4 years for me between finishing up Assassin's Quest and start digging into this one, so it really felt like I had to kind of try to work to remember a lot of the details from Farseer, and but getting reacquainted with Fitz and people around did not take too long, and I loved just a lot of the recapping that Hobb did through characters coming by and discussing previous events and things that happened in the time skip, and the so like the way we transitioned into this new series was just perfect for me, and uh, I loved the more slice of life slower parts towards the beginning, and I loved once the plot really kicked in and things got tense and suspenseful and dramatic. Like the different sections of this book both worked completely for me. I didn't have any criticisms that I was thinking about. I was fully immersed throughout reading this one. Just loved it from start to finish in a way that I don't think I loved any of the previous Fitz books. So maybe I'm just more in a Realm of the Elderlings overall like mood and groove now after Live Ship. I'm loving those so much, but yeah, this one probably easily takes the spot for my top Fitz book so far.
Yeah, I agree with almost everything you said, and I guess I can think the only difference is that when I was reading Farseer, I was just so excited about meeting Fitz, hanging out with Fitz, and just seeing where his journey was progressing at that point. And I think like you were kind of alluding to, there is a difference with Tawny Man in that we are coming back to Fitz, so there's that feeling of nostalgia in a way of just being back in this character's head. And I think one of the more unique qualities for me too about this is that it's first person. So not only are we just reading about Fitz again, we are in Fitz's head again, which I mean, as frustrating as it can be at times, I missed that. I miss just being in his head and hanging out with other people, and just seeing his perspective. So I was so happy to finally get back to this.
Nice.
Hey, Shad.
Oh, wait, was that little beeping noise from on your end or my end? I wasn't sure if that was me that was beeping, but it's gone, thankfully.
Was it just like one beep?
It was like
Hey, Alex.
three different ones. I didn't know what that sound was.
Oh, I don't know.
One. Oh, we got a bunch of people coming in. I see
Yes,
everyone.
we do.
Alex and Shad and Shadia. Yeah, Derry thinks time gaps between the long breaks between
Yes.
series is okay with the in-world breaks. Did you hear that? That beep right there?
No.
No? Oh, that.
I'm gonna keep one of my headphones out. Maybe I'll hear it.
That I don't think that's coming from my side. An old there he says an old school bubble horn. Yeah, it's an odd noise that I don't know like what app or piece of technology would even be making that noise.
I'm not hearing it. My phone's on silent. Of course, we have technical difficulties. It had to be coming from me because I didn't hear it. Yeah, you aren't getting mad, allegedly.
Yeah, well, it's like a noise. It's like a little blast from the past, though, like something that feels like an older noise from earlier internet times, or something.
I don't understand where it's coming from. I'm trying to get rid of any potential suspects.
So this was such an interesting book for me because of where Fitz is in his life, being in his mid-30s, and he's in this like liminal time in his life where he doesn't feel like a young person anymore, but he doesn't feel like a wizened old sage. And it's also where I feel like I'm at in life in my mid-30s also, and so just it felt immediately just so personally relatable. And like the beginning was just, it felt so heavy for me because like I felt like I was immersed with Fitz in this fantastical setting and the story, but it also felt so close to home and real. And so it was heavy, but in a really great way, where it's causing me to reflect a little about my life as I'm hearing Fitz reflecting, trying to figure out where he's at. So that made the beginning of this kind of feel particularly special.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you in the sense that like Fitz not I'm not saying that I know anything about court life or anything, but Fitz almost like did what everybody always at least thinks about one time, and it's just like I wish I could just go and live off the grid and not talk to anybody. And Fitz was just like, I'm just gonna do it.
Yes.
Like nobody ever follows through with that, but he's just like, I'm sick of this life. I'm gonna go do whatever the heck I want in a little hut. And like sometimes that thought sounds really appealing to me, even though it's not realistic. And Fitz just did it. And then like that's where we catch up with him. We get to see like, okay, he hasn't just gone insane over these 15 years, you know what I mean? He's been building a little life for himself that he's proud of and he's comfortable in and he's happy with. And
Yep.
I'm
worried. I'm worried we might start spoiling things. Do you always want to mention?
Yeah. I was gonna say there's not too much else I can say without getting into spoilers. So I guess I will just briefly put this guy up.
Yeah, if you have not read
people know
Errand yet, maybe.
So we are going to now dip into spoilers territory. So if you just came to say hi and you haven't read the series yet or something of the kind, then this will be your cue to come back and check this out after you've read the first book of Tawny Man. So, what do you think? What do you want? What do you want to start with? I was going to ask you what you want to start with because there's too much.
Fitz in his cottage, man. It's just there's so much going on with it. Like he has found some semblance of comfort and raising Hap kind of as his own son, and just living a peaceful life off the grid with the chickens and with Night Eyes. Like, but it's not like perfect for him. Like there's this sense that he's missing out on, you know, like a romantic life with Molly, and he's wondering about them and Burrich and Niddle, and so he's constantly tempted to skill out and just like see what other people are doing in their lives, and so there's this still the sense of longing that he's not completely satisfied, but after such a like crazily dramatic childhood and with everything that was happening in the first trilogy, it's like feels like even if it's not perfect, it's kind of a nice thing that he's settled into, um, and then just as people start visiting though, I was rooting for him to go back to court and Bucky. Like the second that Shade mentioned, like, "Ooh, come back and tutor," oh, what's his name?
Dutiful.
Dutiful, Prince Dutiful. Like I was like, "Oh yes, yes!" Like you need a shakeup right now. Like, and Fitz is just like, "Oh no, I'm comfortable. I'm out of. I left all that behind, and I have Hap now." And so it's a little frustrating, just like, you know, wanting him to get back in the middle of things, but also recognizing like, oh, maybe he really doesn't want to. And then finally, his hand was basically forced. But it was like it took a long time to get there. Like it was hundreds of pages, almost 300 pages, I think.
Yeah.
Of,
There's
of like,
definitely between
yeah,
like 250 and 300 pages.
like Chade
of
coming to
just
visit, and then Starling coming by, and just getting some slice of life. But then the Fool coming was great. Like they just picked up where they left off with this like very warm like friendship, but that feels a little deeper than just like a normal platonic friendship all at the same time. And like just all of those conversations that they were having, like it just felt really special, just like to not that they could have some time to work through some stuff and be with each other when there wasn't like world ending or like murderous stuff going on around them that they had to you know, just stay alert about. So yeah, that was I loved this whole beginning part, and it seems like it connects with a lot of people, because when I was mentioning in my wrap-ups that I was reading through Fool's Errand, like people were constantly talking about just like the first chunk of that book is one of their favorite parts of the whole series. So it seems to be something that connects with a lot of people. Sorry if it didn't connect too well with Shad there.
yeah.
He was mentioning
Shad was it
Yeah.
was not his favorite. That's okay though. I mean, I like like Alex said, I also love the beginning, but I could totally see why somebody might, you know, just be like, all right, let's get on with the narrative here. Like, not that Shaw like doesn't love Fitz as a character or anything like that, but just not a lot physically happens. But to me, like through this first couple hundred pages, what we were really getting was like a reacquaintance and a learning of where Fitz was mentally, and like one of my favorite parts about reading through this initial 200 or 300 pages was I think it made me realize just how flawed. I mean, I knew Fitz was a flawed character and a flawed person that's had a lot of stuff that's happened to him. But so many of the people that come to check on him, and even the way that Night Eyes has always kind of treated Fitz is delicately. Um, no one is coming and initially being like, you have to come do this. Like even Chade, when he comes, he's trying to get Fitz to get to the point where he makes the decision himself to come back to Buckkeep, because it's almost like he's still a child in his head, and the minute somebody tries to ask him or make him do something, he's like adamantly not gonna do it. I mean, even Starling was like trying to get him interested in maybe coming back to Buckkeep, and then eventually the Fool comes along. And he's just like, I hate to do this to you, but listen, I don't make the rules. I just get the prophecies, and all I know is that you and I are a part of this. And Fitz eventually is just like, fine, oh my gosh, okay, you're like the ninth person that's tried to get me to do this. But he trusts the Fool so deeply that like it takes somebody like that to actually get him to change, to be a changer. You know what I mean?
But
Um,
I still think there was this part of Fitz that was also very tempted to return with Chade, like and return to the life of intrigue, and you know maybe tutor dutiful. I think there was a part of him that just wanted to do that immediately, and uh, but I think the other part of himself of like, no, I left it behind and I'm staying separate and I'm raising Hap now. Like that was kind of warring with him in that moment. But I do think there was part of him that maybe wanted to immediately re-enter that life again. But it's painful for him because of like Verity not being there anymore, and also uh, where like maybe it feels like he's currently able to stay very separate from like Birch and Molly and Nettle and so I think he's worried about getting entangled with them again in any way. But man,
no, I
as
agree.
we
Well, he didn't have any. He didn't have any. So Shade, Starling, Burrich, and Nettle, all the people that we followed in Farseer, for the most part, even Ketrikin, have had the ability, because they didn't just up and leave the court, to get closure with some of these events that happened in the past. And Fitz just left. He left those events kind of where they were. He has no idea really, but beside what Starling is bringing to him in very minor bits of information, he has no idea what's going on in court life and like politically in the world. He has no idea how bad the piebald and the old
yeah
bloods, people
yeah
viewing
yeah
the old bloods, like he has no idea. So he has, I can imagine Fitz just stuck in these thoughts about how the world was 15 years ago when he left it all, and they're not really accurate anymore.
yeah
Like,
yeah
but he doesn't know that because he has no interest in going back to court life, or doesn't think he does until people, come and try to get him to
yeah
come back there. So,
yeah yeah. Oh man, as we start to get some of the flashbacks, like I was so intrigued to hear like what Fitz was doing right after Assassin's Quest. Like he basically goes on a journey with Night Eyes to Bingtown and
yes.
walks through the cursed shores. And oh man, that was like the fool could barely believe it that what he was hearing. Like he went up the Rainwild River for a bit. I was like, oh my god, this is amazing to hear.
I
Um,
know.
and
I forgot about that part.
and then we even learned that he sought out Molly, Birch, and Nettle and like could see them,
Oh,
and that was just such a like tragic recounting where we're like
my heart.
he's seeing his daughter and Birch and Molly having this happy life, and he probably made a really wise decision because he knew that like just showing up, even if he didn't try to insert himself, like that they would make them feel really weird about their whole situation probably. So he was like, let them be happy, but it was so tragic like that he couldn't even tell them he was alive, and oh man, that was that was rough.
Yeah, I mean, you could just imagine, because he was dead set on going and like not confronting them. That's the wrong word, but just letting them know he was alive, I guess. And I for years he was trying so hard to like restrain himself, because I mean he has the ability to like skill and go and check on them, but he's trying so hard not to even do that because he doesn't want to interfere with their life. But then eventually he drives himself crazy enough to be like, I'm going, and I'm going to tell them I'm alive, and I don't care what it's going to do to them. And then he gets there and he's like, I can't disrupt this life. Like, look how happy they are. Like, he's just seeing like little scenes of Nettle being a mom and like, hurrying the kids along, and Burrich, stepping in as dad. And like, he's like, I can't disrupt this. And it's devastating. Um,
Yeah.
and it's interesting because one of the more interesting things about this book for me, for the hardest thing for Fitz is not helping Birch. Yeah. one of the more interesting things for me is that like so Fitz at this point, I don't know exactly if Dutiful is considered his child. That's a whole weird thing.
Yeah.
But he's
Yeah.
obviously got like he had Nettle, and Fitz is almost reliving his father's actions in a way by not raising his own children. However, he still feels an obligation. Like he calls Hap his boy. He's like my boy.
Yeah. Yeah.
He literally treats Hap like his son, but there's like a part of his mind that's completely okay with just like not accepting the responsibility of like his own actual children. Um, it's weird.
Yeah.
It's a
He,
weird
I
like
think he very much it's out of a very good, like, selfless place. Like, 'cause he knows Nettle's in good hands with two parents who love her. Doesn't want to mess that up, get in the middle of that, and then like he doesn't want things to be weird between Kettrikin and Dutiful because he thinks essentially that Kettrikin doesn't know that like it was Fitz that she conceived Dutiful with, like because he was appearing like Verity to her, I think, and so like physically it was Fitz's body that conceived Dutiful, but like it was really her and Verity
yeah,
truly
but then
like.
doesn't the fool say there is another Farseer heir and he's not referring to Nettle?
Yeah, yeah. I think either way, if Dutiful is Verity or Fitz's,
Well, that's true. That's true.
or hybrid son, he's a Farseer heir, and that's another like that was such a powerful moment when the fool was like reality check to Fitz. It's like if you throw fate off and or fate gets thrown off with like Dutiful, then like Nettle is the Farseer heir and things are gonna now maybe go badly for her. Like that is maybe what gets Fitz into action to try to save Dutiful more than anything else. I think was
Yeah.
wanting to protect Nettle.
Um, if anything, Fitz fathering Dutiful keeps the line truer. Yes. Okay, that makes sense. Um,
But I
how
love that he's also like concerned about Kettrikin and wanting to maintain like Kettrikin's good feelings about Verity and like this like have her keep her treasuring the memory of her last time like ever seeing Verity essentially. Um,
yeah, I mean and that's like a thing that you know Chade, I think largely, and Birch to an extent, instilled so deeply into the fibers of Fitz as a being is is that the Farseer line and the king and or queen is his duty. He has never lost that mindset. Like
yeah,
he cares more about making sure that that Verity at the time and Farseer and Kettrikin, he cares way more about them than he ever has cared for himself. That's always been the most important thing to him. Yeah.
it's when Fitz does go back to Buck and or well Buckkeep. I guess he's in the province of the Duchy of Buck to start. But when he goes back to Buckkeep, Buckkeep is the name of the town. Is it? No. What is the name of the town? Is Buckkeep the castle?
Buck.
It's
Yeah. Buck
it's
is the name of the town, I believe, and Buck Keep is just the castle.
okay.
It's the
And
keep, I believe.
okay, so when he goes back there, like that is Hob just handled that so interestingly. Like when someone returns to a place where they grew up or they spent a lot of time and they've been away for a while, like the way that Fitz is having all these nostalgic memories, but then also registering all these new changes around town and seeing different businesses change hands or Molly's family store is now something else and but like seeing that his room basically is just left alone and still there. Seeing people like the cook is still there, but she's not cooking anymore. Like
Yeah.
little touches like that, just man, it made that whole section of him coming back in to Buckkeep so interesting and intriguing. Like so little like dramatic was happening in this whole section, but I was always like utterly engaged by what was happening in Fitz's perspective. Just dealing with catching up with people, going to Buckkeep again. Like it felt emotional. Like him going into Chade's tower room again. Like that felt like, oh, what a cool return, but it's not exactly the same. And
Yeah.
yeah.
So before we fully get in, I guess, to progressing the narrative to the point in Doc or Buck, I wanted to ask you about all the stuff that happened with Starling.
Oh
How do you
man,
feel
yeah,
about Starling?
that
Because
was
that was like a
fascinating. Like
big,
she's like an easy character, I think, to just kind of dismiss or hate. And part of me wants to just like completely rag on her as someone who's not being considerate of people's feelings or but like she is more of just like this carefree hippie-ish kind of person, like seems to not care too much about like monogamy and uh you know uh, and to her like she's not doing anything wrong or dishonorable, but not bringing in Fitz on it, like that's very dishonest. And Fitz feels like he's doing something dishonorable by being with Starling when she just comes around randomly. And Starling's also like working for Chade at the same time and bringing information back and forth. And um, like Starling, also the way she handles Fitz not wanting to continue their affair like was very negative, and she gets very starts to insult Fitz, if I remember right, and like make Fitz
yeah,
feel bad about it. And so that is just not cool. It's like she like Fitz has nothing else going on romantically or socially like in his life. Like she's it, but she has a lot else going on in her life. So like I feel like she should be more respectful of how Fitz wants to conduct his own affairs and not try to impose too much of her own ethics and morality on him, or just like
yeah. Well, so Fitz. This is why I brought this up because Starling to me was kind of just an irritant that I didn't really hate or like all that much. Um, I mean, I think that Fitz eventually just kind of accepted Starling for what she was and why she was still hanging around, which was to get a story to make songs out of in Farseer. And yeah, the relationship grew when there was, I believe that, that group and Fitz and Starling did care for each other in a way, but like you were saying, when Hap I mean, it was like eating Hap alive because yet again, we have a situation where the people around Fitz, and we're talking about Hap, who's a teenager,
yeah,
realizing the truth of the situation far before Fitz ever put the pieces of the puzzle together. And Hap can't even hang around Fitz because he knows what Starling is doing to him, but he knows that Fitz doesn't know it. And so he like after coming back from like, his travels and he goes and like is living by the stream or doing whatever, and then eventually he's just like, I have to tell you this, like Starling is married, and Fitz is like, oh, okay, and like it's like this whole time Fitz really just had it in his mind that Starling was just a minstrel. All she did was go and sing and make some money, and then she would come back to visit Fitz, and like the reality that that is actually what was going on is not likely. Like she obviously, like you said, has a life outside of visiting Fitz and singing in inns and taverns and at Buckkeep, but Fitz didn't realize it. And then like he was just devastated by the fact that, oh, I can't be doing this to somebody that's married. And it's just it almost, and I think this partially too kind of was part of the shattering of what Fitz had built up to be like his perfect little bubble and this in this hut wherever the heck he is on the map. I'm not exactly sure, but like I think this part played too into him finally making the decision to be like, I this isn't really like this. My life isn't really what I think it is. Like, I've got to get back to like doing something because now I'm getting hurt again, and I'm not even trying to now. You know what I mean? So that was an
Yeah,
interesting spur.
and I think he started to get like we when that when the person who makes the charms, is it Jinnah?
I think it's Jinnah.
Jinnah, like it seemed like they had a little bit of a spark, like when she was reading his palm, and they were being a little flirty, and um, like that also seemed more like of a mutual kind of real romantic thing than whatever was going on between Fitz and Starling. And then when they see each other again in Buck, like they're being even more flirty, and yeah, it was great to see that kind of developing for Fitz. The way that even played out, where I think toward the end, like when he came back to see Jinnah, like I don't even remember what happened. Did he come in and they were kissing? But it seemed like they really started a romantic fling by the end of the book. Um,
I don't recall exactly the details of that part, but I
but
do remember generally what you're talking about.
but that was really nice because it is making it so that Fitz isn't so isolated and alone anymore, and doesn't have to completely just be pining for Molly and feeling pity about whatever was happening with Starling. Like I'm really happy that um, he's getting out and about a little more and making some new connections. And on top of that, now maybe becoming like an uncle type actual like tutor figure for Dutiful, which I'm pumped for, because uh, they had a bit of a rocky start to their whole their whole relationship here, with um,
Very.
Dutiful not knowing who Fitz was to him and feeling like he was just getting chased by a threat for a while.
Well, this is a
Yeah.
good transition into the next thing that I want to talk about. That we haven't still we're 32 minutes in and haven't touched really on the reconnection of Fitz and the Fool. So Ben and I were obviously ravenously messaging each other as we were making our way through this book on Discord, and I really, because Ben, if you guys didn't know, had a much larger time gap between reading Farseer and Live Ship and than I did. And do you want to talk about the moment that I
Yeah,
was trying to hint at you and
I was getting more and more suspicious that the
about
fool
Amber?
that the fool was either like closely tied to Amber or related to her in some way, romantically involved maybe. But then there was a line that happened early on in this where the fool was remembering being on a ship and Fitz coming to his rescue. Like he was on like lying down on a ship and like someone was threatening him, and Fitz did like a wit punch or repel or something like that through the skill and the wit or whatever, where he protected the fool, and the fool was like, "Oh, I was wondering why I didn't get like hurt that time, or I was wondering what happened." And the fool was like so touched that Fitz kind of like through his dreams or subconsciously kind of came to his rescue. Um,
Yeah.
and so I was like, wait a second, this something that happened in Live Ship? And then I was still just like hadn't fully put it together until Colin gave me some hints, and I'm like, oh my god, this is one of the craziest reveals I have ever experienced in my life. It was just hidden in plain sight for me because of the gender thing. Like I was just refusing to see it clearly. But once it was made clear, I just couldn't even believe it. It was so awesome. Like, oh my god, the fool is Amber. Amber is the fool. Like what a crazy cross series connection That
What
is.
solidified it for me was when the fool just strolls up on a freaking horse named Malta. I was like, yes.
Yeah, no, I was like, oh my god, Malta. Like, did the fool like get this horse from Amber, or like the fool go and meet Amber down near Bingtown and like chatting with her and hearing all about Malta, and so it was like I had not totally put it together even with Malta. I was like, oh, that's a cool live ship connection there. Oh
No,
man,
there was a few, and then it came back to me when I was talking to you about how Paragon said, "Give me a face that you could love," and then I realized, Amber carved the scar, and so Fitz is just riding around
oh
on a ship
man, yeah.
as a figurehead
And
somewhere.
this is gonna make a reread of Live Ship. Just this particular aspect is gonna make it really, really special. Yeah. I might not have picked it up until later if I didn't ask Colin, because I was really struggling to like, I want to know just what is the deal with the Fool and Amber now, because I was just, there were so many possibilities that I was still thinking about. So if I was left on my own, I might not have really put it all together until later. So I kind of asked Colin to help me out a bit.
I
Um,
was very hesitant to do it because I didn't want to. I was in a weird position because Ben is the one I'm reading through the series with, and we were at the exact same knowledge point in the series. So you can't theorize with somebody who's read the whole series, and I'm like, oh my god, I have to talk to somebody about this. Like,
oh,
so then the fool comes back, and he's the one that eventually is able to really, I think, give Fitz the confidence to do this. What eventually happens for the rest of the book, which again, almost 40 minutes in. I reeled us back from Buckkeep a little bit, but we still
yeah.
haven't even gotten to
No, like
Buckkeep
how
yet.
touching was the Fool's interactions with him at this point? Like the Fool is like, he wants just to leave Fitz alone and for Fitz to have some happiness and peace and to not be brought back into, all of the intrigue and politics and danger. Like he feels so bad about it, and he feels like Fitz has been through enough, and he's like, oh, I have to pull it back in and inflict more pain. And he feel like his genuine sorrow about that is so touching. Like it's such a sweet, innocent dynamic they have. The Fool feels like such a unique character, like, and still tied up with so much mystery because we don't get their
Oh
POV,
yeah.
we don't get their internal thoughts, so we just get all of their very mysterious dialogue. So like, uh, and the Fool, Fitz is like, can you just sometimes say it as clearly as you can? And the Fool still will say something a bit ambiguous or vague. It's like, this is as clear as I can make it. I love it. I love it because we're just in Fitz's perspective, and it's like still a little frustrating because the Fool is still this mysterious figure. Like Fitz just wants to get closer to the Fool and like even just know the Fool's real name, or like, can I have an actual name to call you that's not the Fool? And the Fool made it into a big joke, and that was a great scene. I really loved.
Yep.
Um, and it's just like,
I
okay,
thought that it was really fun to see Fitz through Fitz's eyes, because we're seeing through Fitz's eyes the fact that the Fool's been very busy creating this entire other persona as Lord
yeah,
Golden.
yeah,
And as we're moving through the different areas on our way back to Buck, and especially once we get there, we realize just how prominent Lord Golden is. And when I had made the Amber connection, I realized, oh, that's how the Fool is so wealthy. Like, he got she the Fool got part of Egrot's treasure hoard, and so he
oh yeah,
created this persona as as a wealthy, you know, I don't know, aristocrat of the area that everybody respects. And then he just has to walk around treating Fitz like absolute crap everywhere they go.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
they're the only ones that know it. And then there's all these moments of like, oh, we kind of messed that up here. Like Fitz is like, I shouldn't have probably taken the lead in that discussion, or like
yeah,
told him what to do that way. Like it's
yeah.
just
He's
fun
not.
to see how that.
Yeah. Fitz is not the greatest actor or servant, and so their dynamic throughout when they're playing, you know, Lord and servant is really amusing a lot of the time because Fitz is so bad at it, and also like they both would rather just be themselves and be normal around each other as equals, and so when they get moments alone to themselves, it's nice to see them being relieved at that. But like having to keep up the charade for who's the woman that accompanies them to
Laurel.
the huntsman, Laurel. Yeah, you know they Fitz is so annoyed that like they have someone accompanying them, and like she's a bit of a romantic interest for him, and he thinks that like there might actually be a romantic thing happening between her and the fool, when it's really just him, the fool, acting as Lord Golden, I think. Yeah. Oh, but what a great moment when Fitz sees Kettrikin again. Yeah, that
Oh yeah.
was a wonderful moment, but like fascinating because he has his like beard going and his different clothing, and so she doesn't really recognize him, but she kind of like recognizes that she might know him. But yeah, when they finally see each other again, it was nice that
Yep.
Kettrikin
My
has
queen.
warm feelings. Yeah, they both have such warm feelings towards each other. Yeah, that was great. Absolutely.
Yeah, I do remember this moment where Fitz is like, "Oh my gosh, the Lord Golden is literally as believable of a character as the Fool," and then he suddenly starts to doubt like the
Yeah,
Fool he knew his whole life.
yeah, yeah. Oh, that's good stuff. What about when they're just leaving for Buck? I had to reread this part because Hobb did it very subtly, where all of a sudden Fitz is like daydreaming, but then he's like he's skilled or witted like into the perspective of someone else nearby who was bonded to a cat, and they're
Oh
like running
yeah.
through the field, and Fitz is like, oh, it's like this young boy with his first bond with a cat. It's like so nice that they're off running around here. And I was like, it was such a weird moment, and I reread it to like, did I read that correctly? Like, what was exactly going on there? And Hobb left it pretty vague, and I had a feeling like it was going to come back around as being meaningful, and then we start to get hints about Dutiful like having this pet cat, and he's very close to the cat, and you're like, oh my god, he was just basically with Dutiful, who had absconded away from the keep with his cat, and that was such a cool little way to preview the plot that Hobb did. I love
Yes.
that, and but then like once we get into the real plot, like man, that was so dramatic, and it was so interesting because you don't really know what the deal was with Dutiful, and no one knows like, was he captured and for what purpose, or did he just go of his own volition? Is he being treated well? Is he and like there's this sense that he might be with this very like sympathetic group of old blood people who are just like trying to further their own ends because they've been discriminated against, and they're being murdered all over the place. And so like there's this one part of me where I'm wondering, like, is whatever they're doing like good and something that would be Dutiful would be happy with, or good for the witted folk, or and that was all really intriguing, especially because one of the things we didn't talk about was we get this flashback of this long flashback of Fitz going to the old blood community out west
Yes.
and being like tutored by the people out there. Like that was really great stuff. Like it wasn't just like he fit in great with them. It was like he had a little friction with the guy there that was teaching him, and he didn't love how close Fitz and Night Eyes were, and it was a little like man, just let them have their thing. There, it's great. Like, I and but he learned some valuable lessons being with them at the same time, and learned about like the discrimination or like the history a little bit of the old blood people. And so now it's just like we know so little. We're in Fitz's POV, and we know though that it's probably not good in the end for Dutiful or for Six Duchies, and like he's probably is being just manipulated and used as a pawn. But I did not think it was as extreme as what it ended up being, where that guy who was bonded to the horse, I can't remember his name, but that he was really lying to a lot of people and was trying to completely like screw over the Farseers because they had led to the he thought like the death of his sister, if I have that right. So like
Yeah, well, I mean, to kind of backtrack a little bit, like when Fitz gets back to the keep, and we get to see a lot of different interesting things happening. So we get to see Fitz realizing that Chade is aging, and that Chade, this guy who trained him, is kind of slipping mentally, and it's an interesting especially that conversation where and it was another just heartbreaking moment in this book where, you know, Fitz was saying to Chade, like, I'm not your apprentice anymore. Like, I will help you, but like, you know, you are not my master and I'm not your apprentice anymore. And Chade kind of struggling to like accept things the way they are and that their relationship is different, and that Fitz realizing that Chade's accepted another apprentice, and you know, all these things are happening. Meanwhile, the world at large does not know that Dutiful is witted.
yeah,
Um, I think a few people, and when we get, you know, Fitz back to Buckkeep, might suspect that he's witted, but they weren't sure. Um, you know, that he was actually witted, and so that's, I think, where you were kind of alluding to, like the plot got a lot heavier when it was just it wasn't just a kid running away from home. Like it
yeah,
wasn't just this noble kid getting fed up with court life and running. I mean, that was part of it too, but it became much more heavy because he is witted, and then Fitz is like, oh, there's so many. To me, there were so many parallels to Dutiful as a character and Fitz as a young character
yeah.
in their demeanor, and you know, we get like obviously Fitz learned about both forms of magic that he possesses in such a backwards way, and the people that know how to skill correctly and know how to wit bond correctly, they see it. And we even see it when Rolf was just like, dude, you are screaming. Everybody within any radius of you can hear you and Night Eyes talking. And Fitz is like, no, there's no way. And then he hears Dutiful doing that. He doesn't know who it is, but
Yeah,
Dutiful was never
yeah,
trained correctly being witted.
yep.
And
But
like it,
at least Fitz had very innocent, completely like mutual and like innocent bonds with all of his bonded animals, like with the dogs first, and then Night Eyes. Dutiful's first bond has been manipulated to be, you know, someone who is basically a human spirit inside the cat. So it's like this weird double bond. And as we get hints along the way that like that he's being manipulated by this girl romantically and led on, and that she's probably like, we do get hints, I think, that she's like not real or that she's inside the cat. And it's just like utterly heartbreaking how it ended up playing out, where Dutiful's like whole life is shattered, and his first, you know, animal bond or romantic bond was this sham, and where he was just being completely manipulated. Like it's and the poor cat among it
yeah,
all. Yeah. Like what an amazing like climactic moment too, where it was the cat who really was protecting Dutiful and shoving back the girl inside so that the cat could basically sacrifice herself to be like, you know, make sure the girl died too. man, that was some heavy stuff for happening with the cat
Yeah.
and Dutiful, and and there are parallels, but like Dutiful like is dealing with something that Fitz never had to, where he had this
Oh
pure
yeah.
bond with the dogs and with Night Eyes, where there wasn't any manipulation going on with the actual bond itself, or with, and so that is so rough that Dutiful went through all this, and just like your heart breaks for him, and like um, hoping that he can recover from this. And we do get a sense like he was grieving a lot after this, and that, but he did seem to come back to himself a little bit, and having Fitz there, I think was a giant help for him.
I agree, and I think that we see like really, because Fitz, I think, is just so angry about everything, like getting dragged away from his life, not wanting to, but realizing like he has to, and they're on this freaking journey, and again, it's Night Eyes that kind of grounds him through this whole process and softens him up towards Dutiful, because Night Eyes this whole time Fitz, he Night Eyes is the one that like stops Fitz from torturing that soldier, that kid soldier that they captured, you know what I mean, who was just like trying to get away. Night Eyes is like, dude, what are you doing? Like, the fool was like scared. He's like, I've never seen you like this, Fitz. Like, what
Yeah,
is going on? Like, and then like Night Eyes is the one that is kind of like showing Fitz, or maybe like opening his mind to just how twisted this relationship between the cat Dutiful and I forget the guy's sister's name. I forget the guy's name too.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah,
Night Eyes is like, this poor cat is like struggling here. Like, there's something wrong with this relationship. It's
yeah,
not right. Like, everybody is suffering in this relationship. And it's Night Eyes that I think eventually really softens Fitz up to be like wanting to help Dutiful, because Fitz was like angry at Dutiful a lot.
yeah.
I mean, he even like freaking beats him up, doesn't he?
I don't remember if he did hit him once, right? Like at least,
Yeah, he like
yeah.
hit him.
Yep. And it was good for Dutiful to get some tough love there, because being the prince, it doesn't seem like many people. He was feeling like isolated in his life, and like people weren't ever treating him like a normal person, always treating him like a prince. And so I think he did also enjoy being around Fitz, who was not like treating him like some royal noble who needed to be coddled. And I think Dutiful is really felt like he had been missing that, which is nice. But man, Night Eyes, like throughout this whole book, Night Eyes was just such a steady, comforting presence. Like when Night Eyes was choking in the beginning, or towards the beginning, it was like, oh my god, like can this not happen? Like, and,
Yes.
and Fitz was healing him a little bit and like healing his heart. And I'm like, oh my god, this is great. Night Eyes is gonna be able to get healed by Fitz as he ages and be able to live a nice long life throughout the whole series alongside Fitz. Um, yeah, but Night Eyes was like, oh no, like I didn't want Fitz to heal me, and Night Eyes took a long time to. I think he was a little grouchy that Fitz like used his own life energy to heal him, and I wasn't really taking some of the hints. I think, but I think there were some of them where Night Eyes was like trying to tell Fitz like don't give up your own life energy for me, or like, and the
Yeah.
way that he went out at the end to like go on his last hunt, and just knowing that he doesn't want to stick around Fitz, like as he's almost like getting into his really old age and dying, because he knows Fitz is gonna do everything within his power to try to keep him alive and to heal him. Like, man alive, was that some touching stuff. I
Yeah.
I didn't even believe that it happened when it did. Like, did I think what happened just happened? And I had to go back and reread, and then and it did seem like it was real. And man, was that tough. But Hobb wrote that whole chunk of the book so beautifully, where Night Eyes, passed away and Fitz was dealing with it. Um, Man, that's
Yeah,
tough to read though.
it was. I mean, like you said, the writing was on the wall even before this series began. I mean, I don't know how old Night Eyes was when we left in Farseer, but 15 years happens between Farseer
Yeah.
and Tawny Man. So like logically in my head, I should have been like, okay, Night Eyes can't physically be around for much longer. He's already lived far past a dog's life expectancy. I'm not sure a wolf's life expectancy if it varies greatly from a dog's, but I mean, we see throughout the course of their initial journey so many signs that Night Eyes is like not healing the way he used to. He's not able to like lead. He's more following. Like he's not able to go out and scout and range anymore before they get to a situation like he's always done. Um, he's like, just go. I'll catch up to you at some point. You know me. Uh, I and then obviously the scene, that's such a devastating, just Fitz and Dutiful both going through this
Yeah.
extreme process that Hobb has made very clear up to this point is devastating for anybody that is wit bound to an animal to go through. They both go through it as a result of the same scenario that they're both in, trying to solve the same problem. And I did the same thing on that scene, like the end of chapter 26. I was like, what's going on here? Like, this feels kind of trippy. Like, I almost feel like it was like my subconscious mind not wanting to actually read what was on the page and thinking it was something else. And then as soon as I read the first chapter, first like page in chapter 27, I was like, no, there's no way. There's no way this happened. And I went back and I read the end of 26 again, and I was like, oh my God, this was Night Eyes dying,
Yeah.
mentally preparing Fitz that he was leaving and going on his last hunt. And Fitz was seeing it and not accepting it for what it was. And I was literally like, tears were just like coming down my cheeks as I was rereading this. And then like again, a little bit later when Fitz sees Starling at the inn, and she's like, what's going on? You don't look good. And then like the first time that Fitz verbalizes Night Eyes is dead, I was like, oh my God. Like I started crying again because I was like, this is
Yeah. When he says
too
like
much.
my wolf too, it's just like my wolf died. Man, it's rough, but
Yeah.
it is a testament though, and to feeling like the bond that was built up over a bunch of books and a lot of time, just beautiful writing by Hub. I think the type of relationship that she does that's so special and almost unique that a lot of people don't do nearly to this extent is just like companionship and friendship, but it's that real sort of close companionship that she just does so deeply, such a nuanced way that I feel like a lot of other authors and fantasy writers don't get to that level with, whether it's with friends or with kind of human animal bond. Interestingly, one of my other favorite series does it really well, which is oh wait, grab this. This is a Temeraire by Naomi Novik,
I've
and
heard you talk about this
yeah,
series a lot.
about a British naval officer who ends up surprisingly being bonded to a dragon, which are like used almost as like air force, like an airship in the military during the Napoleonic War era, and it's a very sweet kind of bond. And what's interesting about human animal bonds that are verbal is like these two can only talk verbally out loud to each other, but Fitz and Night Eyes, it's even deeper because they can basically use mental telepathy to like feel each other's emotions and thoughts. And so it feels like you almost can't have a deeper kind of companionship where you could just like sense the emotions, like when they would sleep next to each other and Fitz would have his arm like on Night Eyes, like, you hear that?
Yes,
like
I hear that. I'm
like a
not sure
train
what that
whistle.
is. I did hear that. Um,
That was
I
odd.
I'm having like throughout the course of this book after Night Eyes passed away, like I realize that I'm really having a difficult time. Fitz and Night Eyes were just a character for me.
Yeah.
Fitz and Night Eyes.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. Yeah.
there was no, even when they weren't physically together, they were always together. Like Night Eyes was so much a part of Fitz as a character, and then when he was no longer there, even mentally, um, I felt not maybe as deeply what Fitz felt, but I felt the void. Like I felt there were
Yes.
situations that would come up where I
Yes.
was waiting for Night Eyes to say something, and I'm like, oh my
Yes.
god, Night Eyes is never gonna say anything again because he's dead. Like,
Yeah.
what the heck?
Yeah. No, it
I don't know
because
what
we
that
spent
noise
so
was.
long with the bond from Fitz's POV, like being without it, we felt it so viscerally. It did feel like there was a giant lack in the books now, and it's amazing that Hobbs is able to make us feel that so deeply.
Yeah,
And just, I'm just upset that we don't get more books with Fitz and Night Eyes duo, because
I
it was,
know.
it was such like a comforting, unique feeling kind of companionship bond. And man, now it's only like, oh, there's only 4 books of that, which means I'll probably be able to cherish those 4 books in a way that maybe, well, I'm hoping I like the others just as much, but there'll be something special about these first 4 of Fitz books where when I go back to reread, I think I'll having lost Night Eyes at this point, like be able to cherish those books even more now. But man,
Yeah,
it's I felt that lack like you were saying. What's web?
I don't know.
Derry, you might have to mention what you meant by web there. Alex has an interesting question. If we think Fitz will ever whip bond an animal. Did you hear that noise too?
From
That was
Tadia. That I think is my favorite. I don't know what that was like.
is that your phone going off? It's coming through very strangely in the microphone. Um, I have no clue if he's gonna find another wit companion. I I hope so because it's such a cool thing to read about. Um, but I have no clue. I feel like my prediction from this point is that he's going to really throw himself into the Chade mentor role now for Dutiful, and he's going to be teaching him and mentoring him. And um,
Hold on, my
but I
headphones
I have
disconnected.
I have very little clue what's going to happen in terms of Fitz's social life. Like I think he's going to maybe continue a relationship with Jenna, um, but I'm fascinated with the politics of this whole situation. Like it seems like Dutiful is marrying that Out Islander princess, right? And so there's some
Yeah,
political connections being forged there. We're hearing things about dragons in the Rainwilds, which is intriguing. Like I can't wait to get to the Rainwild Chronicles, to get back to the Rainwilds and the dragons. Like we hear that a lot of the dragon babies like died or they're stunted or they're needing more time to like grow than usual in the past. Um, like getting those little hints about what's going on there, I just need it. I need more. I wanted more. But I can't wait to return them. But I have almost like no clue or no feel for where things are heading in this trilogy. I don't
yeah.
know.
I mean, as far as Fitz taking a new companion, I I don't know if, I mean, he's so stubborn as a character to begin with that I could almost picture him like, I could picture a similar situation to even getting him to agree to do this mission in the first place happening, where he's just so against it, and then like something eventually like forces him to do it, maybe. But like, I can't picture him ever. I mean, doesn't Dutiful ask him do you think you'll ever bond again?
Oh yeah, and he said no, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
he said like something like I can't picture myself
yeah.
doing it again. Like,
Although I think that's pretty common when you've recently lost someone or had a relationship, and like you might be in a mood where you think you're never gonna find a similar type of relationship again. But then as years pass, and you meet new people or new possible animal companions, like I wouldn't be surprised if he found another one, but also not surprised if he was just like, what I had with Night Eyes was so special and it lasted so long that I don't really need more of that, and I'll. Um, so I wouldn't be surprised for either situation.
yeah, and I think I think that Fitz and Night Eyes, not only was their like whole relationship as a wit bond unique in the sense that, I mean, even Rolf, Black Rolf, the guy training them in the wit was just like, you guys, like, you're way too close. Like, and he doesn't even know that that Night Eyes literally received Fitz's soul in his
Yeah, yeah,
body.
yeah,
And
yeah,
like Fitz lived as a wolf, like
yeah,
in
yeah,
Night
yeah,
Eyes for a time. Like he was not even a part of his
yeah,
physical body
yeah,
anymore. And then that whole scenario like you were talking about earlier where Fitz reached into via the skill and the wit into Night Eyes to like fix his arrhythmic heartbeat, like
mhm.
that. And then the fool was like, they're all three, like they all three are somehow connected. There's always that weird, or was sadly now, always that weird like moment where Night Eyes would say something and then the fool would like almost paraphrase exactly what Night Eyes said, and Fitz would always be like, "Can he understand Night Eyes or no?" Like
Yeah, yeah,
this is
yeah,
so weird. Like there were
yeah,
so many moments like that where the three of them are just so intertwined with
yeah,
each other that I think Night Eyes we might see. I mean, we obviously see how Night Eyes influences Fitz's thoughts now. Like he does think kind of like a wolf. I mean, like he doesn't have like human tendencies anymore. He wants to live off bare minimum. Like he's not taking more than he wants to live in a freaking hut at the edge of the world. Like that's like a wolf's mentality, you know? So I think we'll see flashes of how Night Eyes has influenced Fitz um, throughout the course of the series. But it's going to be so weird not to have Night Eyes anymore popping up with thoughts and his sarcastic. Because even Night Eyes was like human in a form where he was funny, like he was
yeah,
sarcastic. He said
yeah,
things that a wolf wouldn't say. He said
yeah,
things. He would joke with
yeah,
Fitz and he would joke with people. Like
yeah.
it was so interesting to see how that relationship developed over the course of their lives.
Yeah, this is fascinating. Darius, I would say, probably onto the right track with this. It's more like they're like at this point a fully merged entity that's just split up into two bodies. But
Yeah,
yeah, it makes sense that, and it makes Night Eyes' passing just that much more sorrowful for
yeah.
everyone.
Because I mean, if that's the case, then Fitz literally just lost half of himself.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
Major identity crisis.
But I love one of the things I was a little worried when Night Eyes died was that it was gonna make Fitz like almost like catatonic, like he was just gonna be overwhelmed by grief and the loss. But like I was proud of Fitz towards the end of this book. Like he was able to keep it together and just like carry on and be a kind of mentor figure for Dutiful. And I think that he was going through that loss at the same time. Dutiful was also helped them bond a little bit, and so that was nice. They could find solace in each other, and they're trying to build their new relationship up. Um, yeah,
Yeah, and then so they go back and even just like the Fool and Laurel giving them space on their journey back to Buck, like after everything went down, like the fool kind of knew when to just like ride ahead and take Laurel away because Fitz just needed to like be silent and grieve, and Fitz and Dutiful like riding alongside each other and just kind of not even talking and just knowing what the other person was going through. And we get that whole journey back, which was pretty melancholy and sad. And then right away they go in. Don't they go in the gate that Night Eyes led
Yeah,
Cade and
yeah.
Tetrican out of?
Fitz drops Dutiful off there. Yeah,
And then it's like the 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 princess is coming way sooner than anybody expected. Like they don't really have time to grieve. Like Dutiful just faces like, you're gonna have to go like right into this. Like there's no time. And then of course they go through back through one of Chade's like secret compartments or secret like passages in the keep, and Fitz is like, I'll never know everything this guy has up his sleeve. There's always something like.
and the new princess too seems like she could become a fun, interesting character. Like, Hub's done a few of these where it's like this foreign young princess who's very like brave, courageous, and strong-minded with Ketrikin, and now maybe a younger, hopefully similar kind of person. Um, but I don't know where it's all going with the plot. I love that all of these books and the series feel so unpredictable to me, and but I'd like to maybe chat a little bit about a major theme and aspect of this book, which is the prejudice and hatred against the witted folk and the old blooded people, and just like the really dark, grim stuff Hob had going on in this book with like people being executed for it and like being torn apart by horses, and like we saw a little bit of that, and so there's still some sympathy for the cause of like the people who the piebalds, and um, so Hub has this feeling some sympathy for them too, and being this group that is really being persecuted right now and hunted
Yeah.
down, and man, this like it felt like it had some major real world resonances with our own prejudices in society and history of treating people badly, and of lynching people and murdering them for being a certain either
Yeah. I
having a
think
certain identity. Uh, that all was hitting really hard, and I'm interested to read the novella now, the piebald prince and the willful princess, or vice versa, because we'll get more of that backstory fleshed out. But it was so interesting how Hob did this world building with this legend of the piebald prince, leading to all of this prejudice and fear of witted people, when like we know that wit bonds can be this very positive thing, and are not this evil thing at all, although they could turn that way, as we saw with the girl and the cat manipulating things. But like it yeah, there's this very dark side of this Six Duchy society that
yeah.
Hob is not holding back on.
No, I think, and I just want to briefly let Alex know, I do want to get back and touch on this, but I do want to address Ben's topic here first. Uh, I think the way I read it was that like, because there's a ton of themes obviously in live shit, but one of the most prevalent ones that was kind of real world parallel was that of slavery and the
Yeah,
mistreatment and the misunderstanding of slaves themselves as human beings. And I got a similar feeling to the persecution of the witted folk in this one. Because in Farseer, it's not as open and apparent, and it wasn't happening to this extent in Farseer. It was just more like a ew, stay away from me type of thought process if you were witted, like you were tainted. But now it seems to have progressed even more so to like what you were saying. Like, I mean, Fitz and others are like wandering up to to sites where people were hung and then
chopped up and then
Yeah.
burned because the people that don't understand the wit, it almost seems like they're committing overkill because they think if they don't like disembody the person and burn them, like they don't know what could possibly happen because they don't understand what a wit bond is. And we're sitting here reading it like this is devastating because I've been reading about a wit bond for, I don't know, what, 4 books now between Farseer and the first book of, and I know it's not bad. I'm sure it could be, but like it's very interesting, and I think might even be more fuel for Fitz's fire to continue to like want to integrate back into society and make sure that like these people aren't being persecuted the way that they are. And then Ketrikin is in a weird position because she doesn't want to be you know an apologist for witted people because of just how many people are against it right now. So it puts her in a weird position to make a statement definitively whether she supports them or whether she doesn't, whether the persecutors should be punished or whether they should be dealt with in a different way.
Yeah,
Like it's a very
because
interesting dynamic
Beautiful's
going
not
on.
even the real king yet, and so like he doesn't have like a strong position yet, and I think she's gonna probably be worried about whether they're gonna be public about Beautiful, having the wit, or they're gonna keep that secret and trying to establish his strong position first. Maybe try to enact some changes in society uh, through laws and enforcing them, and trying to change people's minds before they go public about Dutiful. But that's a very interesting position right now that they're in. With it seems like the majority of people that they lead in their duchy are completely prejudiced against the witted people, and if they don't have those people's support, like Ketrikin's like a foreigner, and
Yes.
she's like, so I think Chade is sympathetic to her political plight. But I one thing I do hope for is that Ketrikin is going to be just a little more firm in support of like the laws and like the no murdering of and executions of witted people, and um, I am hoping that there's going to be more of a stand against that kind of prejudice and violence taken.
Yeah, I agree. I do want to circle back to this. Do you have any theories on this? I don't remember thinking too deeply about it at the time.
Yeah, I don't
Do you remember the scenario?
know. That moment's not coming back to me.
Not nor I.
Oh wait, is this?
I
Are we talking about? Oh, when they went through the skill gate and came out on the other
oh
island,
yeah,
right? Okay,
they were on Other Island, right?
first of all, I was when they came out on the beach, I was like, oh, please let this be the others island. Like
Yes.
I was hoping for it. And then they start to find weird stuff in the sand, and I'm like, oh my god, this is awesome! Yet another amazing cross series connection. And okay, Darius saying the voice was when they were in the pillar space. Okay, I was so overjoyed and excited when I realized they were on the others island, and then I was like just on the edge of my seat with what was going to happen. I was like, did all the others get killed by She Who Remembers? Like when she was free, like I know she went on a rampage and started to kill the weird other creatures. But like I was like, okay, there's one here. Are they going to give us a prophecy? Like I'd love a prophecy. And
Yeah.
and then there were more, and they were coming after them. Like, oh, that was a crazy scene. I loved it that we got
Well,
that
then
episode.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say, and Derry just made a comment on it too. Fitz actually takes something
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
gets
yeah,
away.
yeah.
And first of all, that whole scene was like there's random scenes that almost feel like horror,
Yeah.
and most of them revolve around the others. Whenever Fitz is trying to figure out what, like, it's so chaotic, and he's like, crap, like I don't know which face of this pillar I need to touch, and he has to convince Dutiful to to like keep going back in, even though it's like really difficult. And Dutiful's like, I can't do this. I'm losing my mind. And Fitz like touches the pillar, and then they realize it was the wrong way. So then they have to go back again, and then they go back, and the other is just like in the freaking water. Like he's like, what? The other is probably thinking, what the heck happened? Like, how did you just disappear? That was like a really interesting and like fun scene to read.
Yeah. What was the deal with the crown that the fool had? He showed to Fitz earlier in the book, and then Fitz found the feathers.
So
what was the whole deal with that crown? I can't really put that
this
together.
is, I think, kind of what Derry might be hinting at. And so if I recall correctly in Farseer, which might be a little bit of a throwback for you, when the fool was talking about this grand city and seeing like a queen, or a king, I forget if it was a king or a queen, like he saw like this, I think it was an elderling city, and he was like astounded by it, absolutely blown away about like the people he was seeing and the things that were going on. And then we get to Live Ship, where I didn't know at the time for sure if Amber was the fool or not. But at the end, when they get, Egrot's horde is divided up between the people, Amber, or AKA now the fool, gets the rooster crown.
Mm-hmm.
And then Fitz, and Amber is holding, onto the crown. The fool's holding onto the crown this whole time. It's wrapped up, and he like doesn't know why, but he feels like it's really important. And then Fitz on Other's Island finds these feathers that he feels really compelled to keep. So I don't really know exactly what's going on, but it feels like that all has to be connected at some point. And the fool even was just like gonna paint the crown, but he's like, no, like I can't. It doesn't feel right. Like, he was like about to paint it, and like he's like, no, I can't. Like, I don't know why. This doesn't feel right. So I don't really know. Fitz, I don't think. Does Fitz tell anybody that he has the feathers?
He kept hidden. He kept on almost like showing them to the fool, but he never had a good chance. That was so frustrating. I wanted to see what was going to happen with that.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, like the pieces, I put those pieces together, but I don't know what they mean. I have no idea what they mean.
Yeah. Another interesting piece for the whole series was the stuff with the other white prophet, and like the fool got alarmed when like Fitz made a comment about another prophet or something, like made the fool really like worried when he was talking to Fitz, and then he told Fitz about this other person that is convinced that they're the real prophet that needs to do certain things their way.
Well, so wasn't that the leader of the Red Ship raid?
Yeah, she was like the one next to her advising the leader of the red ship invaders.
I don't remember what there's like Keble Rob Red or some name like that.
Yeah.
I don't even know if that's right, but
I think this person's still out and about, probably going to cause maybe be the ultimate or one of the big antagonists going forward, maybe.
Yeah, because I don't know about you, but I still don't really know much about the Red Ship Raiders.
Yeah.
I mean, unless I'm like missing something, I don't.
We've just been given little tiny hints about everything, but I think the fool's very scared of this other similar person who is utterly convinced that it's them that has to change fate their way. Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely points for Gryffindor for remembering the name. Yeah,
I'm so bad with names for some reason. That one's weird though.
Yeah. The pale woman from the Red Ship Raiders. Yeah.
So yeah, I think that the rooster crown, the feathers, and Fitz and the Fool, it's part of a much like I think it's maybe the biggest overarching storyline that I just have no idea what it's about yet. That's kind of my theory. Like I feel like that whole thing is going to lead us towards what this whole thing is really like, what the Fool has been
like,
sent for, like
I'm
what the
I'm
Fool was
curious
seeking
about
Fitz
like
out for.
why the Farseers in particular are so important.
Yes.
Like why there has to be a Farseer heir for the Fool's desired fate to play out. Like I don't even think they know. But like the Fool also seems really connected to the Vestrits and like Wintro and Malta and Althea and the stuff going on with the dragons. And so it all seems like it's gonna merge together at some point into one giant plot arc. But so far, we're just getting mentions of the other places in the different series. Even though they're close together, it seems like they're still keeping very separate in the plots.
Well, we know that there's some big things to come for the world at large based on the end of Live Ship, because I don't think that maybe the people of Buckkeep, but it doesn't seem like anybody really knows that the Elderling race is like back. And I think, you know, the Fool, we see so many instances of the Fool just not knowing why he's compelled to do certain things, just knowing that he is compelled to do certain things. Like he tells Fitz all the time, like, I don't know why, but you have to, like, we have to be together. Like, we cannot be apart. The world needs us to be together. You are the changer. I am the catalyst. I can't tell you why. I get all these random things, and then later they click. And like you said, I think there was definitely a reason why, I don't know, Destiny led the Fool to have all the events that happened in Live Ship happen, and for them to be a part of it, like, and meet Malta and the Vestrit family and kind of usher the Elderlings back into the world. And then he just knew at the end, at the beginning of Fool's Errand, like he's like, it's time. I've got to go back to Fitz. I've tried to leave you alone, but I can't. Like, fate has pitted us together, and we can't fight it. Like, I don't know what to tell you. I'm sorry I have to do this to you, but it's just what has to happen. So like, and we as the reader are like, I don't know what's going on, but I'm all in. Like, I got to figure out what the heck's going on here.
It's so fascinating with the Fool, like, because it seems like he's not entirely like a normal human. Like he was saying that he has like a longer life cycle than usual, so he was still more just like a kid during the Farseer trilogy, and now he's like really matured and grown up into like an adult phase, and the skin color's changed to tawny, and what a fascinating character for the Fool.
And you're right about the Farseer, because that seems to be something that the Fool was fixated on. Like, he can see different paths to the Farseer line having to be involved in the future of this world. And he's told Fitz this. He's like, if you don't do this, then it's just going to be Nettle. Like, and like, if you don't want it to be Nettle, then we have to do this, because it has to be a Farseer. So we don't know exactly why. I mean, maybe we do, but I haven't picked up on exactly why the Farseers are just as important as they are.
But maybe it does have to do with the magic that they can wield, like that Fitz is this catalyst who's both witted and can use the skill, and so the Farseers, you know, have this skill magic which really makes them unique. So I imagine Fitz's unique magical abilities are gonna, and maybe Dutiful's as well, are gonna be very important going forward.
Yeah, and I think, you know, there's so many similarities to the magic system, even though it's not referred to in the same way between, I guess, kind of the wit and the skill and the magic of the dragons, because there's obviously communication happening between the people and Tintaglia and the serpents, like, in the live ships, like, there's this consciousness bonding magic that happens. So, yeah, I don't know. I can't. I mean, is there anything else you want to touch on that we forgot about?
No, that that pretty much covers it for me for this book. I mean, what a spectacular book one. Like this is the kind of thing that you could only get in a long running epic fantasy series where it's like you could get these slice of life scenes that we get in the first few hundred pages like in a book one or in a standalone like literary novel, but the fact that we've spent like thousands of pages in this world and with the characters already, like the slice of life stuff at the beginning has so much meaning for us. Like there's it's so much more emotional than if this were just we were reading the same scenes and just like we hadn't already gone through all those adventures from the first trilogy. And like it's just something that for a book one, like it does such great setup for like new plots and new intrigue, but so much great like calling back to stuff that came before. Just the kind of stuff I absolutely love with epic fantasy and big series. So
yeah, and you know, just the emotional that this was I mean, it feels weird to say like I loved this book, but I did for many different reasons. It was very emotional. Like there's not a lot of books that I've developed this much of an emotional connection to and characters that affected me this greatly. I remember there was you know, after I finished it, I said to my wife, who's not a big reader, I was like, if there's any series that I'm reading that I could eventually get you to read one day just to experience it, is Realm of the Elderlings. Because I literally texted her like after Night Eyes died, I was like, I'm literally sitting here in our living room just like crying over this book right now.
Yeah. And what's fascinating about this, it is a great book one. Like I think it does do amazing setup for like future plotting and character growth and everything. But this, more than almost any other book one I can remember, feels like it could be not only like a standalone, but the end of a series. Like this feels like we are left off in a place where there's some catharsis and feeling like oh, if I didn't get any more, like I would be okay, because I can imagine, you know, like even if the actual plotting around the fate of everything is not resolved, just on more of the character level of like where Fitz is left and like now taking on a new role in life of being the uncle and mentor figure. Like it just left me in a place where I feel like the great need to pick up the next book, where I was like we got this whole long character arc relationship with Fitz and Night Eyes, and that ended in this one. And that almost to me feels like the heart of the Fitz books so far. And the way that ended was so touching and felt so right. Like I feel like this could have been a satisfying ending for the Fitz books. Like I would still want more of the overarching plot, but as far as like where we're left with Fitz, like this book, so much happens here with the characters. Looking back and with new events and just like wrapping up that Fitz Night Eyes arc so well.
Well, and I don't think you're too far off the mark there, because if I'm not mistaken, this was originally intended to be the last series. So there's going to be a lot of heavy hitting moments in this, I can imagine, because I think originally Rob and Hobb intended this the 20-man trilogy to just be the end. So it might just be the end of a story arc by the time we finish this. I don't know. Shadia said, I just started Dead House Gates last night. I read the prologue in the first 2 chapters. So I guess I'm in for another emotional read here.
Oh yeah. You're not going into a lighter place with Dead House Gates.
Then I'll be going from Dead House Gates to Golden Fool.
Oh yeah, yeah. Lightness upon lightness.
Yeah, I'll need to throw in that other Mike Mullman.
Yeah.
Speak with Elders.
It's not the lightest of reads, but it is like certainly less heavy than Tawny Man or Dead House Gates. Yeah, like
I finished Sins and Sorrows.
What's that?
I finished Sins and Sorrows.
Oh yeah. And I just started to speak with Elders actually.
Okay.
And what did you end up making of? Well, we probably shouldn't chat about random other series in here.
Yeah, we can chat. I'll hit you up on Discord. I have some thoughts. I enjoyed it. It was interesting.
Oh, this is fascinating. So she did move to a completely different series, Soldier Sun, after Tawny Man, but then the world in her head kept going. Oh, I love it. I love it. I love that
She felt called
just,
back.
I love that we're just keeping on going. Does Derry know what Hobb is currently working on now that Realm of the Elderlings is probably all finished, I imagine? But like, I'm curious if she's just working on a new series or
if anybody knows what Robin Hobb is up to, it's probably Derry.
Yeah. I'm kind of curious, but Derry thinks that this is the most standalone of all the books in the series, and it certainly feels that out of the 7 so far, it certainly feels that way. Like the Farseer trilogy really did feel like a trilogy in 3 volumes, and basically the same thing for Live Ship, where it was just really one just continuous story, and I wanted to pick up with Mad Ship almost immediately after ending that one. But this one is like, wow, this feels like its own satisfying full arc of a book, and it's really really impressive for a book 1 to feel so satisfying on its own.
Allegedly she's writing secretively.
She's not telling what. Interesting. Are you gonna try to dig into some of the short stories? So like, I don't know too much about them, but in that Inheritance collection, some of them are supposed to be related to Live Ship. So I wanna try to get the whole Realm of the Elderlings experience. So I might before Goldenful try to even read the Willful Princess and the Piebald Prince novella.
Okay.
After it got mentioned so much in Fool's Errand, I feel like it would be a good time for it now. But
well, if you're gonna read that, let me know. I gotta get my hands on a copy of it.
I got it in ebook form, and just for the first time got my first ever Kindle, so I don't have to read ebooks on my phone anymore.
Nice.
So I'm gonna maybe inaugurate my Kindle with that story.
Cool. Maybe I'll do the same.
Ooh, she's giving hints that we might have more Elderling stuff. Oh man, okay.
Hey, I am in. I mean, I even eventually want to read Soldier Sun. I'm sold on Robin Hobb as an author. Yeah. She's not let me down yet. So,
the Inheritance story itself is the beginning of the Rain Wilds. Derry, can I read all of the short stories before finishing Tawny Man? Would I be spoiled on anything with those stories? Or is now like a good time to start getting through them? Not sure, but I love getting short fiction or novellas in a world that just give you new perspectives.
Yeah,
like I love it. Like expand the scope. I love it, and I'm so invested in this. I'm so curious what Golden Fool is going to be like, because I
know
really have no clue where it'll go. Like just no idea.
Well, the other thing is I stopped even in Farseer because I think I read the back cover of Assassin's Quest and I got upset at myself because
yeah.
I don't remember which one it was. So I don't even read the back covers of any of these books anymore because I don't even want to know if characters are alive or dead. Like I want nothing to be spoiled. I have that much trust in Robin Hobb. Like I just don't want to know anything. So I'm the same as you. I have no idea what Golden Fool is going to be about or where it's going to go.
I've heard though specifically that you want to avoid the back cover of Golden Fools. Like I never read back covers. I'm just in that habit, so I was not in danger of that. But yeah, just like I have truly like the most I can come up with is that Fitz is gonna be mentoring Dutiful. That's as much as I can predict.
Yep.
Which is very little. Like, what's going to happen with this overarching? I have no clue what the overarching plot of the trilogy is. It's so fascinating.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. So I'm excited to get to it.
Have you seen the cover, like the hardcover of Golden Fool?
No, I just have the one I just held up.
What is going on the cover? Hold on. I mean, maybe this is gonna be a spoiler. I don't know, but I at least usually look at the covers. Have you seen this?
Whoa.
It
What?
is a crazily colorful back tattoo of dragons. Like,
That's insane.
is
That's such a
that
cool
is that
version of this book.
is that the Fool? Like, I don't
I
know.
actually don't
It,
know.
it looks like a woman, but the Fool is like could be different, different guises. There's a
Wow. Huh.
there's a painting of a dragon and a ship in the background there.
I'm even more intrigued than I already was.
What is going on this cover?
That is a trippy cover.
Yeah. This is I just found this full-sized hardcover at a used bookstore.
I've never found a Robin Hood book at a used bookstore.
Oh yeah, I think it's the original
That's cool.
trade hardcover, but it's the only hardcover I own in the whole series.
Oh really?
I'd love to get my hands on some of the others, but
yeah,
man, that I love that cover. It is truly intriguing me with what is going on. Yeah, but yeah, I'll have some time to read some other stuff. It seems because
yeah.
Deadhouse Gates is a bit of a chunky one, so
yes, it is.
You'll be in 7 cities for a while before you.
I'm excited to get to it, and I definitely want to thank you for coming back on the channel.
Yeah.
I'm so happy we're doing these discussions because it's just so much fun, and I want to thank everybody that comes in the chat and makes it even more fun because inherently Ben and I are going to forget some major plot line that we wanted to talk about, and somebody leads us there. So yeah, thank you so much, Ben, for coming on. I think the next one we'll be doing is on Ben's channel. So
thanks for the wonderful book chat as always.
Again, thank you everybody in the chat for stopping by, and I hope Ben, you, and everybody else has a great rest of your day, and happy reading, guys.
See ya.